Hello and welcome to my video all about how to make your own bauble wreath. I've seen a few different ways of making this kind of wreath and I'll just briefly run through all the different options. I ended up using my own method which doesn't even require any frame or base, and I'll be showing you how to do that shortly. In terms of the baubles themselves, I ended up buying a big box of 36 copper coloured baubles in 3 different sizes. And I also bought a 10-pack of a smaller size. I would recommend that you have at least 3 different sizes of bauble, including a small size which is about 3 to 4 centimeters across, because these are great for filling in gaps. Okay, so the first step is to cut off all the hanging loops, like so. So now I'm going to go through a few ways of making this wreath. The first method that I tried involved a donut-shaped wire frame and some floristry wire. All you have to do is cut out a length of the floristry wire and wrap one end around the wire frame. Then feed one bauble onto the wire and wrap it around the frame. Then feed another bauble onto the wire and wrap it again. And repeat this all over the wreath, one section at a time. Then, once you fill a section, you would just glue those baubles together, like this. You would repeat this until you had the look that you want, and then you would use the smallest baubles to fill in the gaps. Another option is to use a foam wreath form, like this. And all you would do here is take the caps off the baubles and push those caps into the foam and glue them in place. You'll probably want to paint this foam a nice colour before you do this, but just be careful because some spray paints can dissolve the foam. Another option is to wrap the foam with tinsel and then just glue the baubles directly to the tinsel. You can also do the same thing with the donut-shaped wreath form, and the good thing about this is you can make a reversible or double-sided wreath if you wish. And in terms of the downsides, I found the floristry wire method pretty fiddly and it's difficult to hide the frame. The same goes for the foam ring method, and when you're gluing baubles directly on the tinsel, it doesn't make a particularly strong join. So that's why I made up my own method, which I'm going to show you now. Right, so the first thing I did was tape 2 pieces of A4 paper together and then draw a large circle onto the paper using a compass and a pencil. You want this circle to be roughly the size of the wreath that you want to make. This step isn't vital, but the circle just acts as a simple guide. You can then just play around with the ornaments a little bit to work out how you want them displayed in your design. The first thing you need to make is the main ring of your wreath, and this needs to be a continuous circle. I used 9 out of 12 of the largest baubles, and this allowed me to use 3 of each design. Arrange these in a circle and then use a strong glue to attach them together. Make sure the glue dries clear and is suitable for plastic surfaces. I used UHU all-purpose adhesive. Before you glue 2 baubles together, make sure that you check where those 2 baubles are going to be in contact with each other, and then add glue at that point only. If you want to hide the caps of the baubles, feel free to point them directly downwards towards the table. If you do this, you might want to use something like blue tack to keep them upright and still. You'll notice that the caps on these baubles all point towards the centre of the wreath, and the reason I did this was because I wanted to showcase the patterning on the sides of the baubles. That's just something to think about because you might have a nice pattern on the side of the bauble but not on the base, so you can angle them accordingly. Once you've glued all of these baubles into the main ring, then it's time to leave it to dry. I then added the medium-sized baubles into the gaps around this main ring. As before, it's important to check how that bauble is going to attach, and then add the glue to just the contact points. I just balanced the baubles on the table to keep them in place, but again you could use blue tack or other objects to help you. Then leave these to dry. I then used the smallest baubles that I have to fill in the gaps between the large and medium sizes. These were by far the easiest to glue in place because they just sit nicely in those gaps. Once the glue dried, I then filled in the remaining gaps around the outside of the wreath with medium, small and the smaller size of bauble. These were the most fiddly ones to attach, and I had to use various objects from the room to hold them in place. In each of the gaps, I ended up attaching a medium-sized bauble or a small and extra small bauble together. Obviously, I didn't try to make this wreath symmetrical, but you can do so if you wish. It's just an extra challenge. Then, once the glue had dried once more, I added these small and extra small baubles to the inside of the wreath to make a ring shape. This is completely optional and you don't have to make a wreath as wide as this one. Leave the glue to dry completely and then turn over the wreath. It should look something like this. For this next step, you're going to need some sturdy wire that holds its shape, plus some wire cutters and some pliers. I'm personally using some 1.6mm galvanized wire. The aim here is to make a circle shape out of the wire that's going to lie flat on that main ring of baubles. You also want to add 2 small loops near the top of the wreath because this is where we're going to be attaching it to the hanging loop. To close the circle shape, just twist the ends of wire together. You then need to add some glue to where the wire ends join together. And then securely glue the wire ring onto the back of the wreath. Make sure that you're generous with the glue. Once this is dry, you'll need some woven cotton fabric. I'm just using some cotton canvas. You don't want to use a fabric that's stiff or anything too thick. You need to cut out a rectangle of fabric per bauble in that main ring. So I cut out 9 rectangles of fabric. I used pinking shears to cut out the fabric because it prevents fraying, but this is not vital, it's perfectly fine to use normal scissors. Then all you need to do is add glue to each of these fabric strips and then stick them onto the back of each of the baubles. This just holds the wire frame in place a lot more securely. Make sure to push down all over the fabric strips so that they're fully in contact with the baubles. Then, once this glue has dried, just take a length of strong yarn or something similar and tie it onto these wire loops. Cut off the excess and that's it, your bauble wreath is completed. I really like this result, and I also like this method because you don't have to worry about having to hide the frame underneath the baubles. Just as a recap, I ended up using 9 large baubles, which were 7 centimeters across, 12 medium-sized baubles, which were 5.5 centimeters across, 12 small baubles, which were 4.5 centimeters across, and 15 extra small baubles, which were 3.5 centimeters across. I really hope you enjoyed this project, and thank you very much for watching.